Well, pull up a chair and set a spell here at Tales from SYL Ranch Live, the vlogcast that reminds you to always know where your towel is. And I'm your host, Bill Stone. And tonight on Tales from SYL Ranch, we have the Fandi Masters mini review of the Orville Season 2, Episode 3, Home. Now, to explain my show for the benefit of new viewers or people that might not come in at the top of the hour and give me some time to get to the review, I do live reviews. Sometimes I do serious films and TV. Sometimes I do schlock. Tune in tomorrow for some schlock. And sometimes I review modern films or TV with a broad appeal, such as The Orville. I will take any and all questions, comments, and nasty remarks. You can tell me if I missed something, if I'm completely full of crap, or if I just happen to be amazingly hoopy fruit, which is probably more likely. I do go into far more depth than most reviewers. I don't just say if I liked a film or TV show or not. I go into the acting, the direction, the cinematography, and some of the mechanics of making a film. And I can do this because a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, I was once an actor, so I can speak with some authority. Not as much as a modern working actor, and I never want to give that impression, but with some authority. As they often say, those who can, do, and those who can't, teach. Now, my Orville reviews are mini reviews. I don't go into quite as much depth as I do on my Monday reviews, but I still think that you will find I go into more depth than other reviewers here on YouTube. Now, as a non-spoiler review for this episode, I can say that this is a very damned good episode. The sort of mystery catalyst was a complete surprise to me, and that is hard to do to a Fandi master. Once it was revealed, once I understood what that was going to be, I did kind of see where it was going, but it was still engaging to me, largely because of the other stuff that was going on. I thought we got some really great performances out of just about everyone, including some serious standouts. It is probably no secret that we see a character leave this show, and I am very sad to see that. This episode was one that brought a tear to my eye, and that is very hard to do to a Fandi master, so hats off for that. So having done a non-spoiler review of this, I guess I will issue myself a...
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! All hands, prepare for incoming spoilers.
Yes, it is a spoiler alert, and that is because I am a Fandi master, and that means that the fandom is strong with me, and that means that nothing is new, nothing is original, and at worst, I figure it out about a half an hour too early. This is not a boast or a brag. This is sadly where you find yourself after having watched, read, and listened to about 100 years worth of science fiction. You just can't see the new stuff for this whole century that came before, and you find out there just isn't that much that's new in the world. And oftentimes it'll interfere with your ability to enjoy something, but that was not the case here. Not the case at all. Despite the fact that I did see a couple of things coming, it was so well done that I did not find a problem with enjoying it. So to talk about the episode, well, oftentimes on my Monday show I'll walk through the plot for something, like tomorrow for Supergirl. But with this one, because it is something that came out last night, I have to say to myself, well, if you sat through my spoiler, then you don't care if I spoil it for you, or you saw it and you don't care. I always like to get my cringe moments out of the way. There are no cringe moments in this one. This is a really good episode. It is, in fact, now my favorite of the series. It was a really well done episode. I liked it very much. Great moments. Well, I'm going to call those out as I go along. By the way, this is probably going to be a shorter review than I usually do, which for some people that'll be good. But I'm going to call out some of the great moments as I go along because they are really great moments, and I want to talk about the people who actually created them. Now, the writer on this, I think she did beautiful writing. I think she did absolutely beautiful writing here, and I'm about to frack up her name. Her name is Cheva Pravit Dumrong. Cheva Pravit Dumrong. Sorry, Cherry. I'm sure you get it all the time. That is a tough one to stick through. Her IMDb, because I've not gone through it before, is 2005 to 2019 with 5 writer credits, which includes 2 episodes of The Orville, one of the other which was Firestorm, which is another one that involved Alana. That was the one with the simulator she was running that, you know, she'd actually told somebody to wipe her memory before she started it. So that's another one. She clearly gets Alana. It's one of the reasons I'm sorry to see Alana go. She's also done 34 episodes of The Family Guy. We always see a lot of crossover here. She also has 3 producer credits, 15 of which for The Orville, which she is credited as co-executive producer, and 195 episodes of Family Guy, and has won no awards. As I said, this, I think, now is my favorite episode of this series so far. I think her writing was beautiful. I always want to call out the writers first, because if without a good script, you can get all the talented people you want, but it doesn't matter. This was a great script, and it brought out some of the best performances that we've seen of these characters throughout so far. It was wonderful. Really, really good writing that was well structured and well executed in front of and behind the camera. And I think probably a labor of love to some extent for her. But she clearly gets this character of Alana. She gets the family stuff. She gets, you know, kind of doing reconciling stuff at the end. I thought that this was a great, well-written episode. Well-written episode. Round O applause for her for this episode. I really, really liked it. In terms of our characters, I'm going to run through some of them very quickly because it is not the characters of most episodes. By the way, one thing I do want to mention about her writing. She didn't fall into the trap that this show sometimes does, which is where they have an A story and a B story. That is a holdover from the Berman era of Star Trek, and it got really, really old after a while. I think it's part of the reason tail end of Voyager, in most of Enterprise, it was just this A-B plot thing where we have something basically technical going wrong that's going to frack up the ship. We have another thing going on over here that's related to somebody's character, and unfortunately they don't meet anywhere. If you're going to do that, if you're going to have an A-B story, it should be something where the character over here learns something that is then impacting this story over here. She did not fall into that trap. We have one story here, and that's all, and I thought that was great. Now, as I said, I'm going to run through a lot of the actors really quickly because it is not any of their episodes. So, for example, Seth MacFarlane as Captain Ed Mercer. Not his episode. Just not his episode. He has some things to do that are supportive stuff, but if you are looking at this from a perspective of the Emmys or something like that, he would be a supporting character here. Just not that much to do. Similarly, the beautiful Adrienne Palicki as Commander Kelly Grayson, not her show. A few things to react to, a little bit of order giving, but really not her show. Just not her show. Penny Johnson as Dr. Claire Finn, also not her show. A few more lines because she's doing technical stuff, but no character development here, not her show. This was not her show. Scott Grimes as Lieutenant Gordon Malloy, not his show. Just not his show. However, I thought there was a really nice moment at the end when Alana has gone around and is hugging people, and he escorts her into the shuttle. I can't tell you exactly what it was, but something about that moment really just struck me. The whole scene where she's saying goodbye really struck me, and I'll talk about that when I get to her performance. The chair's falling down again. There we go. Okay, Peter Macon as Lieutenant Commander Bortus, not his show at all. barely has 2 lines, I think. Just not his show. Not much to do for him there. And then finally, Halston Sage as Alara Katan. She's great here. She's really, really good. Things that really stick out to me. Just little things. At the end, when she's saying goodbye, she has a different way of approaching every single character. Every single one. There's a different way to approach it. Each of them does a slightly different thing when they're hugging her, and it was part of what brought a tear to this old Fandi master's eye. Also, her on the planet, everything that's going on there. I mean, we've known for a long time that her parents don't really get her. And when she finally jumps up and does her thing, and they start to get what she is about, there's that scene at the end where I'll talk about more when I get to, Robert Picardo. But I thought that was really, really nice. He felt terrible, and she was holding out her hand and basically saying with subtext and no lines, Dad, we're going to work this out. And I thought that was really good. As I say, this is now my favorite episode of this series. I think it's beautiful. I thought her performance was great. Throughout. And one of the things that sticks out at me for a number of reasons, partly because of the way it was directed, but also her performance, when she's sitting there looking at that amazing CGI sunset and closes her eyes and, sort of remembers herself or thinks of herself riding on one of those horse things. Oh, man, just thought that was beautiful. And then when she does her thing, when she starts being somebody who does this security work for a living, really good. Just really good all the way around. But she calls the shots, her father's about to do the thing that will, leave them with no reason for them to stay alive, and she just turns and says, Dad, don't do that. They have no reason to keep us alive if you do that. Great. Just great. I loved it all the way around. I really liked her performance. And she has been one of my favorite characters for a number of reasons. And I'm very sorry to see her go. I would hope maybe in the future they'll bring her back. I hope she doesn't go the way of Denise Crosby in Star Trek The Next Generation. But at least they didn't kill her with a stupid mud monster, tar monster. That was terrible for her. So they let her go in a way that leaves it open that she might come back. Although, I don't know if she will. So, then we have Jay Lee as Lieutenant Commander John Lamar. Not his episode at all. I think he has about 2 lines, and they're just technical. They're not anything having to do with character development. Mark Jackson as Isaac. Again, not much to do here. I found it very interesting that at the very end, when she's going around and getting hugs from everybody, he doesn't do that, but that's totally in character. One thing I should mention about Mark Jackson that I'm not sure I've mentioned before. This is a guy who's completely covered in everything. And fortunately, he's kind of a logical character, but his body language is so good that when he has something like an emotion, you can still get it. The guy is covered from head to toe. His problem is, how do you emote through that? Fortunately, his character is fairly logical and unemotional. It's kind of like a Spock Data combination. And I think it's great. I think it's really great. And the end where he was doing that I thought was wonderful. So then we have getting into our characters who this episode really is about. Molly Hagan as Drenala Katan. Molly Hagan's IMDb goes 1985 to 2019 with 143 acting credits and 2 in post. She has done almost exclusively television and multiple series and multiple regulars and has won no awards. I must tell you, however, I have been watching her since the 1980s when there was a prequel to the TV series Dallas in which she played Miss Ellie. I have been watching her since then and noticed her every single time she comes up. In terms of her performance here, I thought it was very good. Again, you're dealing with somebody who does not get her daughter at all and never has. I can't, personally, I can't imagine what that would be like. But, obviously it's a big deal for Alara, and, her performance totally underscores that. And when Alara starts to do her thing, she is really surprised and goes, oh my God, my kid is excellent at what she does. Candace King, as Solana Catan, her sister, her older sister. Her IMDb is 2007 to 2019 with 17 acting credits, one of which includes 171 episodes of The Vampire Diaries. She has won awards. She's won the Teen Choice Award twice, in 2012 and in 2014, for Choice TV Female Scene Stealer. I thought that was great. Both times she won it for The Vampire Diaries, and she was nominated 3 other times for the same thing. Her performance here, she does not have a ton to do, but I did find it interesting that she is the person who most empathizes with her sister, which makes some sense. I've got kids, and they do some of the same stuff. I mean, it's not, being jealous of one another, but some of the same stuff. And so I really like seeing that. It seemed very realistic to me. And when she's about to get her finger cut off, that's a horrifying moment for the audience for a number of reasons. But when she's about to get her finger cut off, oh man, did I totally buy that, And then one of the standout performances, one of the big standout performances, Robert Picardo as Eldris Catan. Oh man. His IMDb runs 1975 to 2019 with 224 acting credits, with 2 completed that are not released yet, 1 in post, and 2 announced. He has done almost exclusively television with multiple series, multiple regulars, and of course he played the EMH on Star Trek Voyager. He's won some awards. The Depth of Field International Film Festival Competition Award in 2017. He won Best Supporting Actor for Occupants. He also won the Southern Psychos Horror Film Festival Award in 2017. This one's kind of weird, for both Best Cameo Performance and Best Celebrity Performance for Occupants. I'd have to see what that is to know what they're talking about. He won the Viewers for Quality Television Awards in 1991, the Founders Award for China Beach. His performance here, as I said near the top, watching him here now, I know that this man was totally wasted in Star Trek Voyager. The character he played did not have much in the way of emotion nor depth. It was a hologram, They got some depth when they got into things like the holographic stuff that was, being like slaves. But he didn't really have a hell of a lot. In this show, in this episode in particular, he has what I think is a brilliant performance. Guy who does not get his daughter, has never gotten his daughter, has never given his daughter the support that she needs, has always thought of her as somebody who had a severe problem because she wasn't as smart as everybody else, just never got her. And when he does, and realizes it and apologizes, I thought that was a great performance. Now, that may be just because as a father I have some sympathy for that. And the notion that, and that's another thing that, Halston Stage does, where she's realizing, okay, my dad gets me. There's a place for me here, and holds out her hand saying, we're going to fix this. We're going to get better. We're going to get closer. And he is so devastated, by the time he realizes, my God, her entire life, I have failed to understand what she's about. I thought it was just a brilliant scene. As I say, I have some level of sympathy for this because of my position as a father. And he's doing what I've done from time to time. And I thought it was a really brilliant performance. Totally wasted on Voyager. This is a great performance from him, a really good one. It stretches what he can do as an actor and really makes it real. I loved his performance. Then we get into John Billingsley as Cambus Boren. Okay, here's the part that was tough for me to buy. As a father, I can certainly understand that losing a child, particularly to suicide, is just about the most horrific thing that you could ever have happen to you. Just terrible. You know, as a father, I live, you know, my kids are adults now and doing quite well. But as a father, there are dreams I've had, you know, where this has happened and how horrible it feels. So I get that, you know, this is a horrible thing for he and his wife. But what was hard for me to buy was that they would just go psychotic. You know, if something like that happened to me, if one of my kids committed suicide, I would feel guilty that I was not able to do something to stop it. And if I looked at the circumstances, you know, he was kind of disgraced. But the thing is, you know, if a kid had something like that and came to me, I said, look, you always have more time. You're young. You always have more time. There is time to recover from this. Just because you gave one bad paper where the science sucked, well, all that means is you have to be better the next time around. Go out and find something that's really good and do it better the next time around. You have time, lots of time. The kid was only 30. You have lots of time. So if I was a parent and I heard, okay, my kid was disgraced, got very depressed, killed himself, I would certainly not blame the person who ended up disgracing him, particularly since there were a lot of people who agreed with that person. I would just go, wow, I wish my kid had maybe not taken that as seriously as should have, and, you know, come to me or come to somebody, and we could say, look, this isn't the end of the world. It is not the end of the world. You fracked up, but it's not the end of the world. And the other thing was hard for me to buy because of that would be that these two people would just go psychotic and become murderers and all of that. That was difficult for me to buy. You know, if it was me, would I be angry? Yes. At a certain point in the grieving process, I would be angry. But would I go psychotic? No. No, you'd have to be pretty unhinged right from the beginning. But once you make that leap, once you're saying, okay, these guys went psychotic, I thought they were great. John Billingsley here in particular, I didn't say, but his IMDb is 1988 to 2019 with 156 acting credits, almost exclusively TV, multiple series, multiple regulars, and no awards. And of course, we know him as Dr. Phlox from Star Trek Voyager, where he faced a similar problem as an alien, where fortunately, most of his face was real, but everything else wasn't. So he had some ability to emote. Have a second, I'm going to drop something up here. I want to see. Pop out my chat and put it over where I can see it more easily. So he had a problem on Voyager. How do you emote through that stuff? How do you emote through it? You know, fortunately, he had his face. Here, again, what they've done with the makeup, I'll talk about this in makeup, actually, but he had a lot more to emote with. And when he just finally goes psychotic and tells Ildris to stick his hand into that boiling water, I totally bought him as a complete psychotic from that moment on. Thought he did a great performance. The performances here by the aliens here is great. I really think it's great. Then we have Carrie O'Malley as Florada, his wife. Her IMDb is 1986 to 2019 with 60 acting credits, almost exclusively television with multiple series and multiple regulars, and has won no awards. Again, great performance. Does not have an opportunity to do some of the stuff that you know, John Billingsley does, but still she makes it her own. She looks like she is some kind of psychopath who would, in fact, kill people or cut off their fingers. That one is a really big leap, by the way. That one's a really big leap. It is one thing to do mean, nasty, horrible, and all kinds of evil things stuff. It is another. It is a level of like the mafia for you to go out there and chop off somebody's little finger. Glad it never happened. I was afraid it might. Because you have to remember, this is a technology where they can regrow limbs and stuff. So, I mean, if she cut off her finger, it would be horrifying, it would be painful, but it wouldn't be permanent, as long as they got out of it alive. But it was still a horrible moment, and I thought she did that really well. Her husband wasn't quite enjoying it on the same level. I mean, it was going on, but he was mostly there for revenge. He wanted them to feel what it was like for them to lose a son. And she was a little more gleeful about it. She's the more bloodthirsty one who would have cut off the finger and just said, ha, 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 ha. So I really liked her performance again. I thought she was great. In terms of everybody else, well, we have a lot of aliens in this one. I love those aliens who are very alien. I'm curious to see if the guy they have for the security officer stays on as the security officer. It's John Warburton. I like John Warburton in almost everything. And here he's playing somebody who's real laid back and doing, slang and stuff like that. That was great. I want to check something once here. Okay. Well, that's good. I like to watch my monitor and what's going on live in the corner of my eye so it doesn't look like I'm just frozen or something. So sorry about that. I do glance down there from time to time. Then we have our director, John Cassar. He has an IMDb that goes 1995 to 2019 with 52 director credits, 12 producer credits, including 4 seasons as, the executive producer of the TV series 24. He has done almost exclusively television with multiple series, multiple episodes, and he's won some awards, actually a bunch of them. 2006, he won a Primetime Emmy for Best Drama Series and Outstanding Directing for a Drama Series because he was both producing this show and did some directing for 24. He won the Directors Guild of America USA Award in 2007 for Outstanding Directorial Achievement in Dramatic Series Night. So they have some odd awards for the TV series 24, and then again in 2012, Outstanding Directorial Achievement in Movies for Television / Miniseries for The Kennedys. He's also won the Directors Guild of Canada Award. In 2012, he won the Direction Television Movie / Miniseries for The Kennedys. And he won the Monte Carlo TV Film Festival in 2006 for Best International Producer for 24. His direction here, I really like a lot. If you were with me last week, or if you looked at my clip, I talked about the original series problem and how it kind of got baked into Star Trek, and it was showing up here, that we're not seeing a lot of creative camera work, and we're seeing close-ups and stuff where maybe we shouldn't. Some of that's still going on, but there were moments when I thought he was really doing the right thing. And I can give you an example. When Alara is sitting on the beach and looking out and closing her eyes at an amazing CGI sunset, and closing her eyes and imagining herself riding on that horse thing. His camera work was great. He did a dolly from behind her, kind of stopped, continued the dolly in the next shot, and then went into her face. As I said last week, you save close-ups for extremely personal moments. And there were a lot of personal moments in this, even a few that came out in the action scenes, I mean. And so for him to do that, I thought that was great. That's the thing I want to see. The movement of the camera was not fast either, which makes sense. This is a personal moment. You don't dolly around the way that you would in action. but he dollied up and came in on her face as she looked out and closed her eyes. And I thought that was a brilliant piece of directing. Guys, on this show, do not be afraid to keep doing that. John Cassar, do not be afraid to keep doing that. And do not afraid to do even more. Watch my clip last week, and you will see what I mean. Do not be afraid to do that stuff. It's great. It is great. Cinematography, as always, as we often see in this, Marvin Rush. I talked about him last week, did a ton of work on Star Trek, and that got to be repetitive. Here, I think he was just taking his cues from the director. And so he got the bare minimum of what you need for a cinematographer. You could see what you were supposed to see, and you knew what you were supposed to look at. And sometimes it was done really well. I think probably the director, John Cassar, was saying, okay, I want these shots. And rather than it being a complete, collaboration between the two of them, I think Marvin Rush said, okay, I can get you that shot. And so it worked out very, very well. I thought, the cinematography combined with the directing, very, very good. Set a lot of really good moods. And one of them I can tell you about, one of the things that really struck me. Alara's family is rich. They are clearly very wealthy. When they go to the house on the beach, it is big. It is filled with rooms. It is big and airy and light. Very, very light, which you may not have noticed, but your brain did, because it's telling you that these are rich people, and it is a light set. So that means it tells you it's happy. The light set tells you it's happy. That's great. Then when they went over to the other house, it was much smaller, indicating to us that these people were not nearly as rich as Alana's family. And because of the way they did it, because it was the time of day, because it was what they were doing, they made it very dark in there. That was foreshadowing what was going to happen. It was saying to the viewer, really, these guys are dark. Now, I didn't get that until, we had the ending. But it was really good. I really liked that. It was a great contrast. It was a bit of foreshadowing. Like that very much. Good direction and good cinematography in that case. Then we have the music. I could not find a picture of Joel McNeely, who did the music for this. His IMDb is 1987 to 2019. By the way, I only call these things out the very first time that I do them. After this, if we have Joel Neely doing music, I will not call out all of these details. But for the first time, I do. His IMDb is 1987 to 2019 with 77 composer credits, including 6 episodes so far of The Orville, 9 episodes of The Young Indiana Jones Chronicle, which probably explains some of what I'm going to talk about. He also has 42 episodes of Dark Angel and 67 episodes of American Dad. He also has 37 music department credits and 17 soundtrack credits. And he has won awards. He won the Primetime Emmy in 1993 for, God, these awards are so specific and sometimes so long. He won the award for Outstanding Individual Achievement in Music Composition for a Series, dramatic underscore, for The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. Now, that's one of my favorite series. I like that one very much, showing what India was like when he was younger. I really like that. And he did the music for it, apparently all the episodes from what I could see. And Indiana Jones, by its nature, requires a bigger, more bombastic soundtrack, a bigger score. He also won the ASCAP Film and Television Music Awards in 1988 for Top Box Office Film for Air Force One. So he's done a mix of television and movies. He won the International Film Music Critics Award, in 2018 for Best Original Score for The Orville. Now I would have to go back and watch the episode again to see how much of it I recognize. Loved his music. This is a man who, as I said last week, you can go bigger with the music. And he did go bigger with the music. There's moments where he is doing some understated stuff, like when he's required to put his hand into that, boiling stuff. There's some underscored stuff that's really good because that is a frightening moment. It is a horrifying moment. And the fact that he's got this music underneath it very well underscores it. And when he takes out his hand, it's some horrifying music. Very well done. Very well done. A little bigger than what we're used to. And then when the action starts, he's got the music in there that follows that behind, and it's a little bigger than we're used to. Keep doing that, guys. Keep doing that. Keep doing that, Joel McNeely. Keep doing it. As I said last week, what they need to do is just let their composers off the chain. Let them do great compositions. And his music was very good here. Don't be afraid to keep doing that. All of you, don't be afraid to keep doing that, and don't be afraid to make it even bigger. This show can stand a fairly big soundtrack. Do not be afraid to keep going with that. Production design, again, by Stephen Lineweaver. Very good production design all the way around. Again, those two cottages they got, that was really wonderful in terms of what it did. Tara Miller, hey, nice to see you. First time I've seen you on my show. The episode felt like a short movie. Yeah, it did. It really did. As I said, I think this is now my favorite episode because it was so well put together, and I like Alara, and I'm very sad to see her go. And I thought the performances were great. But Stephen J. Lineweaver's his scenic design here and everything was perfect. I thought it was great. What with that big, large chalet that they have, the small one, the things in there that are foreshadowing, all of the stuff that they have in the various houses, again, tells us Alara's family is rich and this other one is not so much. And I thought that was really good. It's part of what the production design is part of what really makes this episode. It was really wonderful. I like this episode a lot. Now, visual effects are the supervisor is Luke McDonald. In point of fact, it was an army. Now, I loved the visual effects here. I really loved it. One of the things that I like about this show, and I used to like about Star Trek, is that we're dealing with something that is telling us we are going to make it. Whatever our problems may be, right now, we're going to make it. It's going to look cool. That city was awesome. I was totally with Gordon there. It makes me realize that, I'm crap. I thought that was great. And I love seeing that stuff. It tells me this is a future I want to live in. It's totally diametrically opposed to Star Trek Discovery, which is a future I do not want to live in. I love this stuff. It's why I loved Yorktown in Star Trek Beyond. It is showing us a future that, by God, I actually want to live in. This is where I want things to go. And so I thought that was beautiful. The CGI sunset, when Alara is looking at the sunset and imagining going along on that horse thing. Beautiful sunset. I don't know how you could have done any better. Everything was great. And I'm sure there was a lot of green screen going on and they put stuff in post. I'm sure of that. They always do. Everything is achieved in post now. But those visual effects, I thought, were awesome. Just awesome. Thank you, Luke McDonald, and everyone who worked on that. This is a future I want to live in. This is what I want to happen. I don't want a dystopian future where everything's terrible. I want a future like this that looks wonderful and beautiful and very, very futuristic. That's what I want to see. So thank you, guys. Big old round of applause for doing that. That was awesome. Costume designer, as always, Joseph Perot. As I said last week, this is the sort of picture you see with him when he's like on the red carpet or something like that. You always see him in oddball clothes. But it works to his advantage on this show. One of the things you have to be careful about on this show, and I mentioned last week when I talked about the original series problem, one of the things that got sort of baked into Star Trek when you got into Next Generation is you'd go out and down to an alien planet or something, and everybody would be wearing the same thing. He isn't falling into that trap. He is giving characters costumes that make perfect sense for whom they are. A costume, a good costume, should be interesting and tell you something about the person who wears it. And he's got that down pat. He is somebody who seems to like bright colors and interesting designs with stuff on them. That was wonderful. I like that very much. We are not seeing the exact same thing on everybody. We're seeing stuff that tells us something about their character. And you might not have noticed, but your brain did. So good on him. And there's another one thing that I have to say. As I've mentioned this before. Alara is costumed generally in her uniform to look really young. You can see very damned little of her figure, which is why I think when you see her in public, she tends to look like this. As I said last week, I do not try to get pictures that have, people dressing like this. I really don't. What I try to get is pictures, red carpet, wherever, where they look good. You will see a lot of outfits like this on her when she's on the red carpet, and I think it's a reaction to the fact that she looks so young and her figure is so minimized. I think when she goes out in public, she wants to show people, hey, look, I really am a woman. I'm not like a 13-year-old girl like I look on this show. So one of the things that costume designer Joseph A. Perot does is this is one of the few episodes where her outfits actually show that she has a figure. And I like that very much. I don't think you need to make her as incredibly young as they do. I thought it was great. Wonderful. We actually got to see that she looks like a woman and not like a child. So I like that. Makeup here is by a team. It's really impossible without being behind the scenes to call out anybody in particular. Makeup here is fine as usual. One of the things that I like to point out, I've said it before a million times on the show, one of the problems with Klingon makeup, and in particular Discovery, is that you cannot emote through it. Worf had a big ridge here that was immobile. It did not move. Now the Klingons look like freaking queen aliens, and the only thing that's actually theirs is their eyes and their mouth, and then their teeth have appliances in it as well, so it's hard to understand them. And they have nothing with which to emote, just body language. They have not fallen into that trap. Their alien characters are very alien, which, by the way, I love to see. Again, it's a future I want to live in, where people are getting along and doing things together. Their alien characters are really alien, and that's always great. Sometimes they're just CGI. But in this case, what they had was a small forehead appliance, which I'm always wary of, because they did that a lot in Star Trek The Next Generation. Forehead appliances, nose appliances, stuff like that. Here, however, the forehead appliance is such that you can actually move it. Usually with forehead appliances like that, you can't move very much. In any case, it's spirit gummed down, so you can't really move it. Here, they can. They can do stuff like, raise their eyebrows, furrow their brows, stuff like that. That is good makeup. That is really good makeup. We don't see that very much with alien characters that have that stuff on their head. So I love that part. One thing that I might say that is, a bit of a criticism. They're falling into a bit of the Vulcan problem. The Vulcan problem is that they decided in Star Trek that all Vulcans have a bowl cut just like Leonard Nimoy did as Spock. That was simply his choice. If you look at Sarek, if you look at T'Pring, who has nice long hair, that's just a choice of Spock. There's no reason that the Vulcans have to have all of them the exact same haircut. In fact, it's kind of stupid. They're sort of falling into that trap with women in this one. Look, I get that they want to show the ears, but the reality is women in just our universe, look around, they have long hair that covers their ears. There's no reason to do that. There's really no reason to do that. I get they want to show it. I get that they want to make these aliens look kind of like elves. But, you know, have her pull her hair back or something, you know, and put it in a bun. Do something like that. Don't constantly have, you know, the hair parting here and parting here so you can see the freaking ears. You know, do something else. All of the women are exactly like that. And that's something I'd like to see changed. But otherwise, you know, the big thing about it is they can emote. They can emote over through these things because they're small enough and they're well done. And you have to give it to them. You have to give it to them because I watched this in 1080p. That is really hard to do in 1080p. You put one of these things on them, you spirit gum it down, you have to make sure that the edges are all blended in so it looks normal. And oftentimes in 1080p, that doesn't look good. You look at Worf from Star Trek The Next Generation, where they were never intending it to be in 1080p, but they get it in 1080p, and by God, you can see all the lines. Here in 1080p, they're getting it good, and you gotta hand it to them. That is tough to do in 1080p. So, end of the review. A little longer than I thought it was going to go. So I was going to go about a half hour. But end of the review. As always, we can ask ourselves, is this any good? Oh, hell yes. This was a damned good episode. The sadistic couple was a complete surprise to me. And that is really hard to do to a Fandi master. I see everything coming because I've seen it all before. That's hard to do. I love when that happens. Once it happened, once it was revealed, I did sort of see where it was going to go, but it was still totally engaging, and I loved it. I thought we got great performances out of everyone, including some standouts, particularly Robert Picardo. Man was completely wasted on Voyager. He did not ever have the kind of range and the ability to show what he can actually do on Star Trek Voyager. Here he does, and I thought he was great. And, you know, so is Halston Stage. And I really liked Alara. Alara was one of my favorite characters, and I am sad to see her go. And particularly the ending. A couple of places, you know, Robert Picardo being really, really, feeling really guilty. You know, this episode brought a tear to my eye more than once. And that is also hard to do to a Fandi master. I have seen it all. You get inured to it. It's just, yeah, you know. Tara Miller says, I'm a fan of Face Off. I agree the paint on the prosthetics had a lot of detail. I was scared to death at the dinner scene. I didn't know he could be so creepy. Oh, yes. Yeah. Billingsley was. You know, I said earlier on, you may not have been here for it, that one of the things I have difficulty with in that is, you know, as a parent, I can certainly understand how horrible you would feel. But I don't think you'd go psychotic. But he played that wonderfully. And like you say, the dinner scene was terrifying. The part where they were going to cut off her finger was terrifying to me. You know, it's like, oh my God, these people are going to do stuff like the mafia does. This is horrifying. And I was legitimately very frightened. I thought those were really well done, really well acted, really well written, really good episode. My favorite episode of this series now. And it did more than once bring a tear to my eye, which is very hard to do. The ending in particular, where an Alara is going around and hugging everyone. Just thinking about it, I get misty-eyed. I thought that was just brilliant on everyone's part, because everyone had, you know, you could have done that where everybody just gives her a generic hug, but they didn't. Everybody had their own type of hug they were giving her, and that gave her a reaction to it. You know, I thought that was awesome, and, you know, as I say, just thinking about that ending, because I love this character. I'm sorry to see her go. I hope that they're able to bring her back at some point. I would really be interested to know why she left, you know, in real life. Why did she do that? But in any case, brilliant scene at the end. And again, sort of brought a tear to my eye. Just thinking about it right now. I get a little misty-eyed. I thought that was brilliant. And getting the Fandi master to have a tear in his eye is very difficult to do. I've seen so much. I've got 100 years worth of science fiction under my belt, and I'm just inured to most emotions like this. and I love when they can actually move me. So, big round of applause for this episode. I thought this was a great episode, and it is now my favorite. I hope that it wins awards somewhere. So that's the review, but I do have a little bit of news and commentary. I sometimes do that in my reviews. And because it is something that I'm celebrating, I have brought out the Everclear. Oh, it's been a long time since I've drunk Everclear. And I brought out my good glass. I'm not going to put much in here because I'll kill myself. It's Everclear. Last time I had this, I was mixing it with orange juice because we ran out of vodka for screwdrivers. So I want to toast with Everclear the fact that the JJ verse, or as I sometimes call it, the Jar Jar verse, because I really hate the Kelvin timeline, the Jar Jar verse is now dead. Oh God. Oh God, it's been a long time. It's been a very long time since I've had Everclear. Holy crap. Oh God. And Tara Miller says, hear, hear. Yes. The Jar Jar verse is dead. It is now officially dead. I think of this as the Jar Jar verse. God, my burns going down. I have not had Everclear in probably 15 years. But it has finally gone down. They have called the 4th Star Trek movie in the Jar Jar verse shelved. What that really means is stick a fork in it. It is done. This was, frankly, entirely predictable. They spent ridiculous amounts of money on big, dumb action movies. Here's the thing, right? In real life, and you can see this when Sci-Fi Channel does it. In real life, there is probably only, in terms of real hardcore science fiction fans, there is really only about 4 million of them in the United States. Now, they were able to get Star Trek into a crossover where they could get people who weren't, just diehard Star Trek fans, or science fiction fans, rather. But in order to turn a profit with a Star Trek movie, it needs to have a much smaller budget and spent more on a good cerebral plot. Now, my favorite Star Trek movie is Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, and it is exactly that. It did not have a huge budget, and it appealed on a cerebral level to fans, and so it was a damned good movie, and it had some crossover. The other thing was, with the Jar Jar verse, they had a cast who were not dependent on Star Trek. The original series cast was generally very badly typecast. Except for Shatner and Nimoy, almost none of them ever worked at anything. They needed this paycheck. They were tied to Star Trek. They needed this paycheck. The Jar Jar verse cast doesn't need the paycheck. Not a single one of them. The leads do not need this paycheck. They're doing other things all the time. So when Chris Pine held out for the money that he was promised for this film, because the last one, Star Trek Beyond, did not do very well at the box office. It certainly didn't do as well as the other ones. He had already signed a contract for how much money he was going to get for Star Trek, the 4th movie. And they said, geez, the last one didn't make that much money. Could you cut it? And he said, no. And he can afford to do that. He does other things all the time. He is an actor who's in demand. He does not need the paycheck from Star Trek. So, now with him gone, they have shelved the movie. And there is significant problems getting financial backing for Star Trek. Significant problems that I do not believe they will ever overcome. So, yay again. Bit of a toast. Gonna burn again going down. But the Jar Jar verse is dead, and it will probably never come back. God. You can't imagine that I actually did used to pour orange juice into this stuff instead of vodka for screwdrivers. Jar Jar Verse is dead. I hope it will never come back from the dead because I hated it. With Star Trek, you need a lower budget and you need a cerebral kind of story. You can get the action in it. Again, look to Star Trek 2. Best one of the series as far as I'm concerned. Lower budget and characters who were needing this. If I were going to do it, this is my idea. I'm going to give this to you, Paramount and CBS. I'm just going to give it to you outright. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. My throat's burning down. All right, here, I'm just going to give it to you. I'm going to give you the next story if you want to do it. Here's what you do. You stop being in the exact same time frame all the time. Take it out 1,000 years. Make it the 31st century or the 30th century, something like that. Do not shoot in Hollywood. Do not shoot in Canada. Go somewhere. You know, I'm from Lincoln, Nebraska, a city of 250,000. I am half an hour away from Omaha, Nebraska, which is a city of 1 million people. Shoot it there. Shoot it there with local actors. Shoot it with local actors who are so happy to be getting this paycheck that they will stick with it no matter what you do. Shoot it there with actors who are total unknowns, and maybe you could even put it in their contract. You may not move out of Omaha because that will cut down on the work they can do. There's certainly lots of theater work in Omaha that they could do, you know, in hiatus and stuff like that. But do it somewhere else. Do it where the actors, and we have SAG actors out there. We have some very good actors here. Do it with actors who really need this work and who will work for less than these people. You know, if any actor in the area of Lincoln, Omaha, Nebraska, you give them a paycheck of $250,000 or above, you know, you don't have to give them millions of dollars. You don't have to give them millions of dollars. Our cost of living here is so much less than it is in Los Angeles or the area. You can give them $250K and they will be thrilled. You know, so you can get like a $3 million budget per episode. And it's not all going to people's paychecks. Shoot somewhere other than Hollywood, California. Come here or someplace like it where your actors are going to be thrilled to have this paycheck that they would never have expected to see. You know, our SAG actors here don't work that much, and when they do, they don't get that much money. They're theater actors. Come here, shoot here. Trust me, you know, rent out the PBS station studios over here in Lincoln. They have 3 different studios, one of which is huge. They originally shot Sesame Street there. The very first episode of Sesame Street was shot at the PBS studios in Lincoln, Nebraska. It's huge. Go rent them. Build some in Omaha, for God's sake. You know, with the money you're going to save, you can build a studio. So do that. Make this series 1,000 years in the future. So we don't have to worry about all this backstory. You can make the tech look amazing, you know, with holo displays everywhere, or even something more interesting than that. Do that. Don't stay in the same period all the time. And I would have to say, with any luck, STD, which is what I call Star Trek Discovery. I've said before, STD is in its own universe as far as I'm concerned. It is not in the prime timeline. It can't fit there. STD is in its own universe, and that's why I call it's STD and the mirror universe to STD, which is not the mirror universe that we saw in the original series or later on. I call that the AIDS universe, because STDs are bad enough, but then you go over and get full-blown AIDS. STD is a stupid, dark mess of crap. Last season, I reviewed every single episode, and it was painful. It was a chore. I hated doing it. So this season, I am doing the season opener, a mid-season review, and then a season end review. And if they ever kill this show, and I hope they do, I will bringing out my Everclear again and burning my throat just like I'm doing here. And to be honest, I suspect that this show has a low viewership. I think it's hanging on by its nails, and that's why they brought in Captain Pike and the Enterprise. Because we don't know what the viewership is, because CBS won't share those numbers. But I'll tell you this, the fact that they won't share those numbers should tell you something. That should tell you if the numbers were good, CBS would be thrilled to share them. They would be thrown out there saying, this is great, look at all the viewers. They're not telling us. I think that means that this show is getting a very low viewership. Beyond that, Paramount CBS, I never thought that I would ever say this in my life, because Star Trek has always been very big for me. There is a date that I celebrate that is not my birthday. It is the date that I achieved sapience. Very, very young. It was a Star Trek episode. It was a private little war. And the moment that I achieved sapience was when I saw the Mugatu. I remember that moment specifically. You know, if you are a parent, you know, there's a point at which your kid's just kind of doing stuff. They're sentient. But then they become aware of their own self-awareness, and I call that sapience. That happened at a very specific time and a very specific date, and that is what I celebrate instead of my birthday. Star Trek has been huge for me in my life. However, at this point, with the people who are running it both at CBS and Paramount, it may be time to put Star Trek to bed. Rather than let the franchise go the way of big, dumb action movies, and stupidity and darkness and horror that Gene Roddenberry, I guarantee you, is rolling over in his grave at Discovery. It may just be time to put it on to bed. It does not excite me anymore in any way, and I think that's the case with a lot of fans. CBS Paramount has found a way to destroy a multi-billion-dollar franchise because they put it in the hands of a bunch of hacks with not an original thought in their head except dark, horror, and twisted. I've said oftentimes before, the problem is Hollywood, California. You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. It is a place where rape and child molestation rule the day. It's a place where horrible people do horrible things to other horrible people on a daily basis. And all the people who live there and work there know is horror. And if horror is the only thing you know, horror is the only thing you can create. And Star Trek was never horror. Star Trek was like what we see in the Orville. Tara Merrill says they killed it by making it too dark and airing it behind the CBS Access paywall. Yeah. PutLockerTV.to or BitTorrent. Oh, excuse me. BitTorrent. But if you go to PutLockerTV.to, within minutes of it having aired, you can watch it for free. And BitTorrent, of course, same thing. That's how I watch it. I'm not paying dime one for CBS All Access. No frackin' way. I'm not paying dime one just so I can watch one TV show. Screw that. No, put it out there so that it's free and make money off the advertising, just like you do when you air things on the airwaves. Otherwise, I'm gonna do what I do. I'm gonna pirate it. But you're absolutely right, Tara. They killed it by making it too dark. They absolutely did. And they are talentless hacks who only know how to create darkness because that's all they ever see in their own lives. This is why you need to take Star Trek out of that horrible town where rape and child molestation rule the day. Take it out. Bring it here where rape and child molestation, well, can it happen? Yes. But we consider it true horror. It is not a fact of everyday life. We do not have casting couches outside of Hollywood. They are a bunch of talentless hacks that they have turned it over to. The best thing that CBS Paramount could do would be lift and totally rescind the fan film guidelines. Allow fans who understand and respect this material to go to work. And if CBS then wants to, like say for Star Trek Continues, an amazing show, grab that and put it on television. Run it for, well, I don't know, 10, 11 weeks. I think how many episodes they had. I bet that sucker gets ratings like mad because those were good. They were made by a guy, Vic Mignogna, who has love for the series, understands this series, and I think they would kill in the ratings. If you're not going to do that, if you're not going to rescind that and let people with creativity who really know what this is about, it's time to let Star Trek go. It is best to just let it slip quietly into the night, rather than watch CBS, Paramount, no-talent hacks waste money on it forever. Either let the fans take over doing the job, or just put it to bed. Just put it to bed. And I never thought I would ever say that in my life. I never thought I would ever say it, but they really killed it, as Tara Miller said. They really have killed it. They have destroyed a multi-billion-dollar franchise somehow by making it dark. And again, airing it behind the CBS Access paywall was a dumbass thing to do. So, I guess that I did about an hour, and considering I did a chunk of it, 15 or so minutes, on what I think the future of Star Trek looks like, and the fact that the Jar Jar verse is dead, I think that I will do a bit of ad copy for my upcoming shows. And I always do this. Tara, you knew, so I think you knew. Maybe you've been watching and I didn't say anything, but I do want to say that I usually do this in the style of the immortal Ernie Anderson, who was one of those voiceover guys that you heard on ABC in the 1970s and 80s. He was there forever. So, my ad copy for next week. Actually, starting tomorrow. Monday on Tales from SYL Ranch. After losing a powerful orb, Kara, Superman's cousin, comes to Earth to retrieve it. Now she finds herself in a battle for her life against an evil sorceress. That's Monday, tomorrow, on the Fandi Masters review of 1984's Supergirl. Then, next Friday, on a very special episode of Tales from SYL Ranch, Ed finds himself behind enemy lines when he lands on a mysterious planet. Now, Kelly questions why Gordon wants to take the command test. Plus, the crew of the USS Discovery join forces with Captain Pike. Now they must unravel the mystery of mysterious signals that have appeared across the universe. That's next Friday on the Fandi Masters mini-review of the Orville Season 2, Episode 4, and the season premiere of Star Trek Discovery. My schedule, as always, is the same. Tales from SYL Ranch is live on YouTube Mondays and Fridays in North America at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. Pacific. And if you're working off VTC, that'll be 2 a.m. the following morning. I do have upcoming reviews. After, of course, every Friday, I'm doing a mini review of that week's episode of the Orville until the series ends. I'm trying to figure out ways to do a live one on Thursday, but the problem is the thing airs at exactly the same time I would usually start, and I don't want to confuse people by changing my time, so it's probably going to stay Friday. However, Mondays, after Supergirl, 1984's Supergirl, I mentioned at the top of my show, sometimes I do schlock. Oh, God, is that schlock? But I'm going to do it because if you look back in my archives, I had a really, really glowing review, a 3-hour one, no less, of Superman the movie. So I'm going to do this schlock to show you that I can, in fact, give a bad review to something like that. However, January 21st, I'm doing Starship Farragut, Episode 1, the Captaincy. I'm moving into doing some fan films, the good ones. I've already reviewed Star Trek Continues and Star Trek New Voyages Phase 2. It's not here anymore. YouTube, for some community guidelines reasons that they never made clear, pulled 300 videos that used to be my channel. Those are going to go up on the Internet Archive eventually because it's the only safe place I can think of. But since I've done those, I'm going to start doing some other fan films like Starship Farragut, which is a very good fan film. I will be attempting to do at least one fan film episode per month, starting into a couple of weeks with Starship Farragut. January 28th, I'm doing a retro review of King Kong from 1933. February 4th, the 60th anniversary review of First Man into Space. February 11th, the 60th anniversary review of The Cosmic Man, which I have not seen either. There is a schedule on my website. If you go to www.wrstone.com, you can see there's a sidebar link to my schedule. Here's a tip, and particularly, Tara, you might like this. Here's a tip. If you go to my schedule and you click on any individual item, you may very well find a place on the internet where you can watch it for free. I'll try to find that for you. So, in terms of supporting me, well, I might ask something like this.
Say, pardon me, but could you help out a fellow American who's down on his luck? Hit the road!
So if you like what I'm doing, please do like this video, subscribe, tell all of your friends, family, neighbors, pets, and livestock to do the same. If you want to contribute to me, I do have a PayPal tip jar. I no longer have any source of crowdfunding. I'm out of Patreon. I dislike what their policies are doing right now. I'm out. And Subscribestar, unfortunately, because of the nature of some of the contributions I get, is also useless to me. So I do have a PayPal tip jar that you can find on my website. You can also find, which is at www.wrstone.com. You can also find my Amazon wish list, in which one of the things I'd like in there would be a new laptop. I'm working on very old hardware. It would make all of my technical problems instantly disappear. I could probably come at you at a nice 24 to 30 frames per second, as opposed to the frickin' 10 frames per second I'm doing right now. And by the way, if you outright buy my laptop, you get to become program director of this show. You can tell me what to review, what time to review it, etc. All of this is on my website, www.wrstone.com. Want to thank any of my viewers who have contributed. Some have. I am using some of it right now in my studio, and all of the money ultimately is accruing until such time as I can buy that laptop that I've got. I also have a couple of other things on my Amazon wish list. This hat I'm wearing is an Indiana Jones fedora. I can't wear it forever. It's going to wear out. I have a $70 Tilly hat that I would really like to get. It's a hemp hat, and that I have some libertarian viewers, so that will attract them. They like hemp. So, and it's also the right color. I already have a Tilly hat, but it's white. Under this lighting, it just blinds you, so it's crazy. I can't use it. So, I guess, thank you very much for being in here, Tara. Hope I see you again sometime. You can come in tomorrow and watch me really rip Supergirl if you want to. So until then, this is Tales from SYL Ranch, the vlogcast that reminds you to always know where your towel is. And I'm your host, Bill Stone.
Ultimate power in this world has always been one simple thing: the control and manipulation of minds.